I had the philosophy, these are the things I have to do, so I'm going to do them and let it go at that. You know, I try not to fret about, being a soldier. It wasn't what I thought what I'd want my life to be, but I thought, well, as soon as we win this war, I won't be a soldier anymore, But it had quite an impact having been drafted. But fortunately, I was a year younger than most of the kids that I graduated high school from. And all of the guys that I graduated at that time were already 19 and 20, and I was only 17, or 18 and 19 and 20. And I was only 17. In fact, I was 17 about 3 days, and I was out of high school. So I spent from 13 through 16, in high school. Then I got drafted almost immediately. I tried to explain to the board, that look, these other guys are drafted, but I said they're a year older than me. I should have another year yet. No, you're eligible. You can go in there. Well, they drafted me, and I went. But when I got down to the Aberdeen Proving Ground, I think they took pity on me or decided they had a philosophy that they weren't sending overseas 18-year-old boys. So I stayed at the Aberdeen Proving Ground for I got drafted in September, and I landed in Africa on my 19th birthday. So from September until May, I just stayed at there and went through training after training after training, and weekends home. So it was that was interesting. And then I got, as I say, landed in Africa on my 19th birthday. And we were the replacements for the invasion of both northern and southern France.
And you lost your father at the age of 16.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you about the war thing. What's sort of the Reader's Digest version of what you remember about the war and anything that you saw or remember?
It was fun.
Well, I saw a lot of dead people, which I thought I think one of the most moving things that I had experienced is when we went from Alsace-Lorraine, which is northern France, into Germany. That's the border right there. And the city that you run into first is the city of Mannheim in New Jersey, in Germany. And it was totally devastated, absolutely, totally devastated. And I had seen some pictures of this in the newsreel, but never experienced it personally. And I was just appalled at the damage. And to add to this, there were plenty of dead Germans around. They were in all the in the sides, not in the side streets, but like in the gutters and in ditches and things like that. Plenty of dead Germans. And then one time when I was driving a Jeep as a chauffeur for a colonel or something, we were driving along someplace in Germany, and these refugees were sort of trying to flag us down and pointing up this way, go this way, go this way. So this major said, we better see what the hell these people want. So what they did, they directed us to a place where the Germans had not a major concentration camp, but sort of a minor work camp.
Ooh.
And even it was devastating because we stopped there, and the Americans had been there. You want to hear this stuff? The Americans had been there beforehand and had stacked like woodpile the dead bodies that they found when they got there. And they were all covered with lime or something to hold it down. In the compound itself were about a half a dozen dead SS guys, and they were covered with caca and everything that these refugees had done on them. And they opened up a big door like a garage, and all these guys were laying in beds and looking at us like owls.
Ooh.
And I said, the major said, he said, there's nothing we can do here. He said, give them the food we have, and we'll send up somebody to take care of them. He said, we can't do anything here. So we drove off, and first of all, we gave them the food, and actually these guys were so weak that they could hardly walk, but their appearance was enough to frighten you. I didn't want them to touch me or anything, Here's the
Emaciated.
food. Yeah. Oh, it was terrible, terrible.
You know what I wish you'd tell them?
Well, you spent. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The story about how they almost shot you in the Jeep.
Oh, yeah. As you know, as I mentioned before, sports have never been one of my things. So, as I say, I was driving a Jeep as a chauffeur, and I was by myself going to pick up somebody, or I had delivered somebody, I don't know. But anyhow, there was a rumor around that the Germans had dropped troops out of uniform, into civilian uniform, behind our lines to create a certain amount of sabotage. And to counteract this condition, they set up, the Americans set up roadblocks. Everybody had a roadblock. So every time you'd go away, you couldn't go too far without being caught as a German, you know. And the password that every American should know was, who won the World Series? I didn't even know they had a World Series, you know.
And you were blonde and blue-eyed like
That's
Germans.
a small part of the story. So anyhow, I get to this first thing, you know, and they said, who won the World Series? Well, first of all, they stopped you and they got their guns going on. And they said, who won the World Series? And I'm thinking to myself, the World Series? Was that baseball or is that football or basketball? What the hell is this, you know? So I'm standing there and they can say I'm hesitating. I didn't know. So they said, what's your name? I said, Schneider. And he said to me, get out of that Jeep, you son of a bitch. He did, and he put a bullet in his gun. I mean, this guy was serious. I thought I was dead. And he said, how come you don't know the World Series? Then we went to a little bantering about back, and I said, well, I just don't know. I don't know. I don't follow that. I tried to explain it. Nobody was satisfied, so they called in. They brought me over to the local commander, the captain of that particular unit, whatever it was, you know. And he said, this guy doesn't know his who won the World Series. So then he put me all through it. So they finally got a guy from New Jersey. And he said, now, he's going to ask you some questions, and you better know the answers. Well, the guy wasn't from right around the corner, you know. He wasn't from the Highlands. And he's asking me all about this stuff up about 20 miles north of us. And fortunately, enough of the stuff he asked me, I mean, he'd say, where is so-and-so? I said, well, that's in so-and-so. And where is so-and-so? I said, well, that's, it's probably up around so-and-so. I'm not familiar with that. And he said, well, why do they have that smell in the summertime up there from Keeper? I said, because they had a fish factory there, you know. He said, well, after about an hour of this cruise interrogation, he said, well, if this guy isn't from New Jersey, wasn't born there, he spent a lot of time there. He said he probably is just some dumbass who doesn't know who won the World Series. And they told me the password and let me go.